The school has been essentially left abandoned for several years and decades, and has deteriorated on the interior. The district has put forward and expensed the cost of doing an environmental assessment, a phase 1 environmental assessment of the site, so that we can assess some of the environmental concerns that may be present in the school. The Department of Real Estate Services last year actually completed an abatement and hazardous materials study of the interior structure of the school, and like many of our historic properties in the district, there was lead and asbestos found on the interior. So we know that's what needs to be abated on the interior of the structure, and that's what we're looking to have happen over the course of this summer to help clean and prepare the site ultimately for reuse.
Did I hear you correctly that the school is going to be disposed of, that those proceedings are underway?
Well, the context of this meeting is to solicit information and guidance for the district to ultimately find a reuse for the school site. So it could be a charter school, it could be a mix of uses, and it could be disposed of under a series of different formats where it's a ground lease structure or it's disposed of fee simple. So we're looking at all options and all I guess, context for discussion at this point in time. So we're really looking to the community at this point for guidance.
How many residents do I have here now from Ivy City? No, Ms. Velma's here, so it's one. Okay, and everybody else is a developer or from an agency, and we have 2 graduates from the school. When we look at that building again, I just think it needs to be a mixed use of a school, some type of trade and retail space.
Is potentially not economically feasible, but I think it's important to put those ideas out there, just understanding that given that the school is historic, there may be some environmental concerns on the site that will just then increase the cost of the entire project.
The environment around here, because you have a lot of young teenagers with children, and this would be, again, ideally where they can drop the kids off and they can continue their education. Right. But this is something where we got to consider that, because again, we're having a lot of teenage babies having babies, and there's no place for them to take care of. And grandmothers and grandfathers are raising the children instead of the mothers being parents, showing them how to be a parent and teaching them this is ideal location to use because of the numbers we have. Now, like I said, not only Ivy City, but you got the other part of Montreal Avenue, West Virginia Avenue, which you got to utilize and look, you know, because as a person growing up in the city and growing up in this area, I know what is needed, and nothing has changed. Even when I was a kid, nothing has changed, so it's still a vital usage for us to use in this city. And what I see is that a lot of people come in not knowing what the city is, really got to understand what this area imposed. I looked through the book and saw my uncle and cousins all in there, but they all grew up here. They played ball. My father played ball in this area. So again, it's clearly to understand what we need to do as we build around and build the houses, where we're going to place and what we're going to have utilizing this area. Again, the assessment's going to come out saying what the toxic's going to come off and on, and I think regardless of what the economic value is, we got to look at what it's going to take to put this place back and forth, and not even look at what the cost is going to be.
We want to be able to pull drawings or whatever we decide. There's 650 people who live here. They're also the lower end of Trinidad. You know, folks from the lower end, I mean, they pass through here. You know, they move around and they migrate. So whatever we do, we also have to expand the scope to realize that's a very much underserved population in terms of activities and things for young people. Even though, you know, they're going to have the new community center and Joseph Cole, you know, that center tends to service that population that sits right in there. The lower end probably will more than likely gravitate to whatever is on this side. So I think that we really have to make sure that we understand that the numbers are a little bit bigger than I think. You know, because I always want to tell people when we start talking about planning and programmatic uses, we always utilize one number, but that number also never takes into consideration the people who live specifically around that area. And when something is new and exciting, those folks are going to gravitate to the area, to the closest point that they can get to.
So, those things could be housed right there. And I guess something else that stuck up to me to go back to, because when we were talking about the daycare and they said something about environmental study for the kids not to go in there, and it's going to be treated, but then isn't that alarming for whoever's going to have a business in there as well? Adults going in there, the environment is not going to be right? Because you're saying that the kids are not going to be able to go, children will not be able to be in there as daycare.
Also, maybe build a strip mall with an anchor store, whereas you're drawing in some tax dollars, generating tax dollars in the community as well. So in other words, a community center, and maybe enough space also, enough square footage to build a strip mall, whereas you'll have an anchor store that will draw people as well. And at the same time, you're generating taxes for the community.
The isolation of the school really doesn't lend itself to a strip mall. If this school faced New York Avenue with 100,000 cars passing by, then probably, but being off of the avenue, I think it's not as likely that you'll have a retail in the sense of a strip mall like you're describing it be viable here. But we'll put that down as one of the suggestions.
I think his point is valid, because although a strip mall may not be the solution, I think the point is to generate tax revenues and also to provide some of the needs the community wants. But the site itself, I think, is 100,000 square feet. There's an opportunity. I think earlier we said that, you know, in terms of zoning, the table is pretty open. It's CM1 now, but who knows? I mean, there's an opportunity to zone it to where any type of mixed-use project that could include the community center, maybe some retail offerings, maybe not a strip mall, but the same functions of a strip mall. It's wide open.
Debbie, you want to say something?
And could also, whatever goes on the school property, you know, may perhaps link those two. So folks would be, the eye would capture the retail shopping on New York Avenue, but once you're in the community, then you can become more aware of what other offerings from the community center or what could possibly go on the property around the school site.
I think maybe as a bridge, it seems like what builds on the idea of the community center and the retail, which is, I think, an excellent mix, is this idea that's been brought up before of the incubator, where you have other types of businesses that people, especially the younger people living here, have an opportunity not just to have the skills and develop skills, but have a bridge into a viable sort of economic opportunity ahead. So this idea of the incubator and having other kinds of businesses start in there seems to grow on that pretty nicely on that site.
Create jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's one of the. I wanted to focus a little of the conversation around the school ground itself, and the reason why I want to bring this up is that, you know, we have to acknowledge that it's going to take a while for the school itself to be redeveloped. You know, we first have to stabilize it, clean it up, find appropriate partners to help us move on the particular uses that we all see happening in the building. And so the question is there anything that we can do to activate this space, utilize it better, 100,000 square feet, as opposed to just basically sitting vacant for a couple of years until the school gets developed?
Economic issue with the long-term funding, so we need something that might be able to help offset that. And then we know we have what a lot of people have said is the critical mass, be it public facility, child care facilities, community facilities, retail, additional people living in the neighborhood, housing. So it's kind of like there's a not enough critical mass here in the neighborhood of people as well as other things. So it would seem like getting that and getting some additional development would be a real opportunity.